you so much. We are here at the Meta stage. Thank you to Meta for making this happen. Joined by two amazing professionals. So I'm Susie Placencia. I'm a cannabis entrepreneur and advocate, and I have a brand that is global. And one of the top questions that we always talk about is how do you protect that IP when you are, trying to expand. So I'm really excited to be able to speak to you guys. Can you please share who you are and what you do?
Ladies first.
Thanks so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. We're thrilled to be able to spend time with everyone this afternoon and talking about this important topic. I'm Kristina Dahmann. I am an attorney in Columbus, Ohio. We are a US-based, US-wide law firm, and we cover the gambit as it relates to intellectual property and the rights you have there and how to protect it here in the cannabis space. My specialty and background is in litigation, with a lot of crossover with our regulatory group and our intellectual property group.
Great, thanks so much. Sam Porter, partner at the law firm of Ice Miller. We have been at this for over 5 years. We represent companies from your MSOs to your mom and pops. And it's a full service law firm. So helping with real estate, tax issues. Our bread and butter is compliance. We really understand sort of the intersection of law and politics. So it's important for us to play in that political space so we can stay well connected with the regulators. But appreciative to be here today to talk about this important matter.
Yeah, it's something that, unfortunately, it's something that people don't think about until it's too late, right? I think that, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we start a brand and we don't think about the trademark or what could happen until it actually happens. Can you let someone know, specifically small business owners, what are some one or two things that they need to be doing as soon as they incorporate to help avoid issues when it comes to this topic?
Sure, and actually I'm going to hand the microphone off to Kristina, but hey, guess what? No surprise. Cannabis is federally illegal, right?
No me digas, no way.
So that creates a lot of challenges when it comes to registration. So I'll let Kristina dive in here.
So you asked about what one of the first two things you should be thinking about. And I think the first thing is to be informed, right? To learn as much as you can about what your options are and what you have available to you, so you can decide when you have sufficient capital to take the next steps to further whatever you feel is going to be the most useful for what it is that you're doing. So as you start and you launch, you want to think about where you're going to be and what you're going to do. And that'll help you define what it is that you're going to do in those first initial steps. So if you know you're going to be in one state and that's where you're going to focus your efforts and you're going to launch there, you can work on state protections. And that might be a good starting point for you. But if you know you're going to be national, but you're going to be more of an adjacent brand, so more of the t-shirts or providing some sort of service, then you can look at federal trademarks because you're talking about a service you're providing or that other good, such as a t-shirt or an apparel brand, that you can then get those federal trademarks because you're not working in a space where you're dealing with the actual product itself. And you can seek protections under the 2018 Farm Bill, and you can seek protections depending on what it is that is your brand to be able to utilize the mark that you're looking to use or the graphic that you're looking to protect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as, like I was mentioning, small business owners, sometimes you're so focused on the minuscule things. And sometimes, unfortunately, until something happens, that's when we start thinking about it. Actually, just last week, I had a friend of mine in the industry, saying, I claim that I founded this. And, well, where's the trademark, right? So in terms of scenarios, and throughout your journey in this industry, can you explain maybe a few scenarios of what you dealt with like a best case situation where someone is faced with a trademark and maybe infringement or some kind of issue and they over time prevail? Is there a particular issue that maybe you can speak on?
So I'll talk a little bit on the litigation side because you kind of hedged that a bit, where you're having an issue where you're being alleged of infringing on another party's trademark. And that's always the most difficult. And where I've seen it most recently in an example is there was an allegation as to multiple different avenues. So you've got goods and services, and then you have to select the category of the goods and the category of the services for which your trademark applies. You may not need all of those categories. And so there's some chips that you can negotiate when you're being alleged as infringing on someone else's avenue, for example, that channel of the marketplace in which they're working. And you can negotiate it out through geography, through what you're using your mark for, and then sometimes it's a payment. You maybe cash strapped and you say, I'll give you this lane for $100,000 and that will give you some cash, but then you have to remember you're foregoing that lane for the future and you're letting the other party utilize that lane. But it's not just black and white. It's not just a yes or no type of a situation.
Oh, I see. That's why it's so tricky. People want the easy approach, but it just never is. So I think that as you guys have started in the industry, is there an ideal client that you guys are going after? Are there some clients that you're like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole? Who's the ideal client for your firm?
I'm going to kick this over to Sam because I've talked a lot about what I think of as what is available to you, but there's the other facets to it as well, which I think make up a good client when they're thinking about all those different facets. So I'll let Sam talk about that.
Sure, happy to. So usually the clients that come to us, there's problems or there's issues, or they want to start a business and they want help navigating that landscape, and we can do that. And so really, I wouldn't say there isn't they're all great clients, and we're willing to help anybody who needs that assistance. But it's also just understanding kind of what their goals are, what their business goals are. Now, a client that's great is someone who is compliance focused as well, because in the cannabis space, it's so heavily regulated that there's so many pitfalls and there's so many issues that you can fall into, and a lot of opportunities to get in trouble as well. And when it comes to IP and trademarks and branding, something important for folks to consider is they may have an awesome idea for their image, but it may not be compliant with state law. So it may be, for example, they have this really cool character that's a bud or a marijuana leaf or something like that. And if they want to use that product nationally, the issue is they might run afoul of what the state advertising and marketing laws are. So they would need to review, like if it's a medical market, for example, a medical market is loath to accentuate anything that may reference or look close to the recreational market. So that bud or that character or something that might look like a cartoon you may not even be able to use it in the state that you want to operate in. So it's kind of, as Kristina is talking about the federal law, you need to be focused on kind of what the state law says as well. But we can also talk too, and Kristina can dive into it, on protections at a state level as well. I know we've been talking about federal, but...
Yeah. I would love to know like some true and false kind of aspects, because trademark is one of those things that's almost elusive to some folks. I talk to some folks and they're like, oh, we can't trademark, we're cannabis, we're not even going to look into it, kind of thing. Are there some like misconceptions that you heard in the space? Like, what do people need to know that they're just wrong about?
When it comes to licensing?
Yes, exactly. The protections.
So I actually think it's easier than you think to get a licensing agreement. It really just needs 4, this is my kind of good checklist. I'm a big fan of those things. 4 main components in every licensing agreement that you don't want to forget to have. And the first is clear delineation of who owns the mark, who owns what it is that's being licensed to use. And you want to be sure that's described very clearly, described clearly as to what it is that mark relates to, or that type of image relates to. That's one part. So it's the ownership, who owns it and what it is that is actually owned. The second goes hand in hand with that. It's control. So what is the license for? What can you use it for? Can you use it for everything, or can you only use it for a limited subset of things? That's the next piece that helps keep your mark strong, because you're only allowing one party to use it for a very limited period of time. You want to have a termination date, even if it can get renewed. And then at bottom, you don't have to have a royalty attached to it. And I think that's pretty important, because oftentimes you're undergoing these complex arrangements whereby there's intellectual property at bay, you've got other assets that are being utilized, there's services that are being provided in exchange. You don't actually have to have a monetary aspect to the licensing agreement, but you do want to have a clear how you terminate it if there's a breach, and a process whereby if there's a problem, you can either pull the license, or you can say you're infringing on my rights to be able to use your license. So I think that's a misnomer. It's actually easier, and you should write it down, but it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Sure, you see the long licensing agreements, but it can be a very short agreement. It can be very straightforward.
Wow. So that's good to know. And you're absolutely right. Some people just don't go down the path because they're like, I don't even know how to get started. It must be too hard and expensive. So thank you for demystifying that a bit more. I want to switch gears to talk about 2024. You know, we're almost at the year end. Would love to know how this year was for the firm. Are you seeing a shift with people seeing and taking this seriously, or are you seeing a pushback and a little bit more? Tell me about your year.
Cool.
So we're based out of Columbus, Ohio, and for those that are following Ohio has been crazy. It's been just
Ohio recently came on, and it was like a flood of people getting on there. What's that been like?
It has been awesome, and it's been wild, and we've been super busy, and very fortunate to have so many clients that we can serve. And so a lot of it is you know, I give a lot of credit to the Ohio Division of Cannabis Control, because this was thrust upon them through a ballot initiative that passed in November. So in that ballot initiative, which was citizen passed, it bypassed the General Assembly, there were certain timelines and timeframes in there that the state had to meet. So they had to set up a whole new agency. They had to write rules. They had to create a licensing construct. They had to issue licensing, create inspections and compliance. Now, some of that is built off of the back of the medical program, so it helps create some efficiencies. But there's just a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. And also with an agency that needs to get staffed up, and it doesn't have a lot of individuals, staff to begin with. So they had a lot of challenges, but have done a tremendous job. So it's been a real partnership, honestly. And I think it's been refreshing as well, because we've had to work closely with them to kind of understand, okay, here's what the statute says.
Yeah.
Now you're building these regulations, and a lot of these people, the state employees, they don't have maybe the institutional knowledge or experience. It's still a new frontier. So a lot of people are trying to figure this out as we go along. So they've been a good partner to try to, find the best path forward. But we've been helping clients finding real estate for licenses, applying for licenses, and then providing stakeholder feedback on the administrative rules, as well as we do legislative lobbying as well. Because look, it was a ballot initiative, and not all members of the General Assembly love it. So there's an education piece as well. And our clients have been a great asset to be available to help kind of show and educate, what this means for them, and don't undercut the program. So,
yes, absolutely.
So it's not only just helping to build the program, but it's also to protect the program as well that we've been facing. So, but Kristina has been instrumental as well, because while we're on the compliance side and the government relations side, there are, litigation issues as well that have sprung up that she's just been phenomenal in handling. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, let us know. What did you litigate in 2024?
Right, a pinch hitting over here.
Yeah.
It's really the gambit, dealing with contract disputes, licensing disputes, dealing with fights with regulators, not getting what you want or what you think you want. And been doing that in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, and in Kentucky. So it's been a really busy year in respect to Ohio. But I think we've been mostly fortunate in Ohio not to have had any litigation surrounding the adult use rollout. Sure, there's been challenges. There's been moments where we were pretty close to litigation potentially, because we weren't believing that the state was doing what it should have done. But with the kind of give and take of the dynamics we have here, we're able to kind of navigate to get clients their, what ultimately they want, which is their licenses. You want to open up and you want to do what you do best.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I did want to add regarding kind of what we're seeing this year, particularly relevant to the IP and trademark issues, is just the proliferation of hemp-based products and what are products that are appropriately trademarked under the 2018 Farm Bill, because you can trademark products that are under the 2018 Farm Bill. And that has really blown up over this last year. I just this morning was at an event, and there was hemp-derived drinks across multiple tables.
I was at that event.
Yes, you were.
It's really refreshing, no pun intended.
Yes, right.
To see that move. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's great to see that. I think, so moving forward and looking, 2025 is a little over a month away. What are you guys excited about for 2025? Well, what are some predictions you see specifically within this topic of trademarking?
I think that we're going to continue to see growth I think we're going to continue in terms of like number of people that are filing and then number of challenges to those that have filed. I think that's kind of front and foremost, and that just is inevitable with the development of new industries and new ideas. I think that, though, at bottom, we're going to have to keep a close eye on any federal changes to what is defined as legal. It's really going to be interesting if there is any change there as it relates to those trademarks that have already been filed and been issued. Because one of the rules with trademarks is that what you're filing on has to be legal at the time it's filed. And so it'll be interesting because all of these were legal at the time that were filed, but then they may no longer be legal. And so we'll have to keep a close eye on what may happen in that respect as things move forward. But one thing to note for those who are new brand owners or thinking about developing a brand is you can file a federal trademark before you're actually utilizing the brand. And that is a good way to get ahead on the issues. And now I guess we've gone full circle on one of your earlier questions.
Yeah,
from today.
Absolutely. Just getting ahead of the game, So 2025, make sure you are doing your proper research, you know the laws, and are able to make the most out of when you launch a brand right at the end of the day. That's what trademarking is so that you're able to have your business and be able to be the most profitable and deal with less problems, right?
That's ideally. Although if you do run into problems, you can always call me.
That part. Better to avoid problems, but if you get into a sticky situation, you know who to call. Where can people find you? Where can people get in touch and find and be able to book some time with you?
Absolutely. So Sam and I both have websites that give all of our contact information. Just look us up at icemiller.com. And if you ever need to get in touch with me, I'm 571-224-8956.
She just dropped her phone number, you guys. There you go.
Is that your personal cell phone?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. Oh no, just kidding. No, and same way you can reach me at icemiller.com. Some things you need to watch out for too, or other ideas too for expanding your brand or just your name and your product line is through white labeling agreements too. And so those can be done also to protect your name through licensing and trademark contracts that you could have with other processing facilities or cultivation facilities. So you may be an operator that wants to operate in Ohio, but you don't have a processing facility or cultivation, but you do in another state. You could launch your product in another state through these types of agreements that we review often. I would suggest a legal review of them because sometimes there are little pitfalls that you can have depending on how they're structured. So, for example, if you're doing like a flat fee for service versus based off of profit sales at a dispensary, you just need to be careful that you're not running afoul of any potential ownership disclosures or financial interest disclosures or things of that nature to the regulator. But there certainly are other opportunities if you want to get involved and increase brand awareness as well and protecting that name through these types of agreements. So
yes, we're in for the long haul, or at least trying to be. Thank you for the work you do in the industry. Thank you for joining us here at the Media Stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.